So today mostly we'll be talking about releasing resistance, because if it were not for patterns of resistance that you've picked up along your physical trail, you would be today experiencing the glorious drama and adventure of being the receiver of all things you've ever imagined. You would be standing in the fulfillment of ideas immediately. You would not want for anything. You would feel satisfied. You would feel fulfilled. You would feel eager for more. You would feel invincible. So today, we want to talk with you about anything that is important to you. But it is our desire to assist you in feeling the relief of releasing resistance. Those of you who have been listening to us for a while are aware that we've offered endless spewing of processes. And every process has been offered with the intent of assisting you in releasing resistance. Because if it were not for resistance, you would be living whatever you are wanting every day. We notice as we watch some of you that you find yourself in a vibrational pattern, and law of attraction makes more of the same easily available to you. And because law of attraction says that which is likened to itself is drawn, whatever it is you're focused upon, there is plenty more where that came from, right at the tips of your thought points. In other words, it's not the easiest thing to be witnessing something and having a feeling response to what you're witnessing, and then just out of the blue pick a totally different thought. In fact, not only is it not easy, it's not even possible. Any more than you could set your radio dial on 98.6 and hear what's being broadcast on 101 FM. It doesn't line up. Law of attraction says it cannot be received. Here's where you're feeling and here's where you're wanting to be. Now, most of you think that creation is about getting that house that I want and then I'll feel better, or getting that lover I want and then I'll feel better, or getting that money I want. So most people think that creation is about getting the thing, the person, place, or thing that they are wanting, and then they will have an emotional response to getting it. But we want you to understand that creation is about getting the feeling, because once you get the feeling, then you're in the state of allowing, and all the things you want then flow in. Creating is about adjusting your own vibrational countenance to the place of allowing the well-being that has been orchestrated for you, by you, and by others for long before you were in this physical body. Well-being wants you, and it wants you in the specific way that you want it to want you. Well-being wants you to live in the house you want to live in, and wants you to live with the lover you want to live with. Well-being wants you to have the dollars that you want to have. In other words, the universe is established in that way. The contrast helps you to give birth to desire, which is always answered. Have you heard the expression, ask and it is given? No truer words have ever been offered. Well-being wants you and will come to you to the degree and in the timing that you release the resistance, which is the only thing that is keeping your well-being, your specifically focused well-being, from coming to you. So this emotional gauge that we're talking about is everything. It is the distance between where I feel right now and how I want to feel. It's not here I am without the car and over here's the car. It's how I feel right here without the car and how I will feel here with the car. It's not how much money I will have. It's how I feel here with not enough money and how I will feel over here with more money. Everything is about the way you feel. So if you're angry about not having money, if you're jealous about not having money, if you keep beating that drum, if you join those groups, if you make fun of people who have money, if you resent those who have money, if you're irritated about how the government spends money, if you resent the fact that they take your money, in other words, if you're mucking around in those kinds of vibration, you're holding yourself in a vibration that does not allow what you want to come to you. And it does not matter how many times you say you want it. If you feel over here, you can't get what feels over here. You got to find yourself relief. You've got to relieve yourself. Relief right into all of those things that you want. So there's this place where you are on any topic. Here's where you are, and there's a place where you want to be. And this seminar, in fact, everything about your life is about closing that gap and the relief that you feel as you close that gap. So here you are. Whatever the subject is, let's say you don't have enough money. And so we say to you, so how do you feel about that? And you say, well, I feel discouraged. And we say, is that the best description? Do you feel discouraged? Do you think discouragement is the way you feel about money? And you say, yes, I feel discouraged and angry. I feel angry. I feel discouraged, but I think I feel angry. And we say, well, is angry really the way you feel about money? Is that the way you feel? And you say, well, I feel discouraged and angry. Frustrated, discouraged, and angry. And we say, well, how do you feel mostly? Frustrated, discouraged, angry? Well, I feel blameful, actually. I feel angry and blameful. I feel angry and blameful that I feel guilty. Discouraged and angry and blameful and guilty. And we say, so that's your set point. Here you are in this guilty place. And now you want to reach for the refreshment of more consistent anger? Which feels worse, guilt or anger? Does, doesn't it? You can tell. Guilt feels a lot worse than anger because guilt is part of that disempowering, I'm not good. It's so far on the other end of the spectrum of who you really are. Guilt feels horrible. Anger's much more refreshing than guilt, isn't it? So as you work to achieve some consistent anger about money, you've made an improvement. And as you then reach for something that feels more like frustration, we would love it when you say, I'm sort of frustrated about money, because if you're just sort of frustrated about money, you are very close to being in the place where you're allowing plenty of money. In other words, once you start rippling up this vibrational scale, once you get pointed towards San Diego, it's easy to keep going. But what happens with so many is they don't know what the game is, and they don't know how to tell where they are within it. And so they're not reaching for better feelings. They're trying to do this or trying to do this or trying to follow that or trying to follow that. So they just keep moving back and forth between human and Phoenix, human, Phoenix, human, Phoenix, human. And then before you know it, you are so discouraged that you feel like you're out of gas. And what we're wanting you to hear is that you're never really out. Think about the gas gauge on your car. Indicator of where you are. When you see your gas gauge on empty, you don't just get so mad that you take a hammer and beat it out of the dash. It's an indicator. Yeah, that's all. And you do something about filling it back up. And that's what your emotional meter is about. When you get over there sort of on empty, don't have a meltdown. Just do something about it. Try to get a little bit more of the infusion of who you are. Because that's what life is. The better you feel, the more of who you really are you are allowing to flow through you. We are eager to talk with you about anything that is important. There is nothing off limits.
Good morning. I want to tell you that, Abraham, you've meant quite a bit to me. You've changed my life. I was on antidepressants on and off for 13 years. And after listening to you faithfully for less than a year, I know how to feel good without taking medication.
Wonderful.
So I really appreciate that. I've heard you say many times that you never get it done, and you can't get it wrong.
Yes.
And I get that I never get it done. I can't get to the feeling place of I never get it wrong.
Here's the reason you can't get it wrong. Because you never get it done.
I know that.
So no matter where you're standing, it's not over, so it can't be wrong because you're still moving. Can you feel that what we've been talking about here is, so here I am, and it's wrong where I am because I'm in pain. And I know that's wrong because I'm supposed to feel good. So Abraham says I can't get it wrong, but it sure feels wrong because it sure feels awful. But because it's not done, and I still have the option of choosing a better and better and better feeling thought, I can find more and more relief. The fact that it isn't done means it cannot ever be declared wrong because I'm never standing still. Try to get this picture. You're a vehicle in motion. And your motor's always running. It never stops running because you are always vibrating. And law of attraction is always responding to your vibration. So as your motor's always running, now you are this vehicle who's on the temporary path between Phoenix and San Diego. So your motor's always running. And if you're pointed toward San Diego, you got to get there. Since your motor's always running. In your physical terminology, you say, well, the wheels could fall off and the motor could shut down and the engine could be out on the pavement and then I would be stuck in Yuma forevermore. But that analogy doesn't hold with the vibrational nature of that which you are because your motor never stops running. As long as you understand that it never stops running and as long as you are gently pointed toward where you think you want to go, can you see how you can't not get there? You can't not get there. The only reason that any of you are not where you want to be on any subject is because you're running around in circles, because you haven't been paying attention to the only thing that matters, which is how I feel and what am I doing with the resistance, which is the only thing that's keeping me from what I want. Those days are over. You're now free.
So speaking about vehicles, they paint lines on the road and in the parking lots because they assume that I can get it wrong. And they make laws and they have the police because they assume that I might get it wrong. So, in other words, I use appreciation a lot to take me to a place of well-being, and I look for evidence.
We want to point something back to you, something that you're doing right here, and it's very good because you just now deliberately tried to make it worse.
Right.
And then you deliberately tried to make it better. In other words, you talked about the lines and the laws, and you tried to point out how they're trying to make you wrong, and then you talked about how you found appreciation. But you've got to move into a whole new understanding. We will never say that there are not a whole lot of others that would like to say that you are wrong. But we would like to say to you emphatically, they don't know. Those same others that are painting lines and making laws will tell you that you're destined to hell if you don't follow their game. Those same ones will take bombs and blow up mothers and children's and families of other nations and tell you that you're wrong if you don't agree with their doing it. But they don't know. They don't know what is vibrational alignment for you, you see. And so when we say to you, you never get it wrong and you never get it done, and as your dominant quest is reaching for the relief of your connection, we know that well-being has to be yours, because when you release resistance, the well-being that is your legacy has to surround you, envelop you, express through you. It is law, you see.
Okay, can I ask one more question?
Certainly.
Well, the other thing is you've been talking about anger as a bridge lately, and so
as a bridge to what?
As a bridge from grief, as a bridge eventually to joy and well-being.
But we would like to say anger is a bridge to the relief of discouragement. In other words, just for a little while, we don't want to say follow your bliss. And we don't want to say anger is a bridge to joy. Because there are so many steps between anger and joy that if you try to make too big of a jump, you get discouraged and you just get stuck in Yuma, and then you go back to Phoenix, and then you complain that it doesn't work when it does.
Yeah. So I guess the problem that I was having is that I was taught, and I think other women in my generation were taught, that nice girls, good girls don't get angry. You know, of
course, because
right.
Anger is not nice to be around. And the selfishly motivated ones who wrote the rules wrote them for their comfort, not yours. The teacher wants obedience in the classroom for her comfort, not for the mind stimulation of the child. In other words, it is the problem with socializing. Socialization without an understanding about the laws of the universe makes for all kinds of rules, because society constantly tries to protect itself from the freedom-seeking socializers. You see, when you don't understand how things come to you, and you see this one doing that, and that one doing that, and that one doing that, you worry that they will infect your experience in their choosing different things than you will choose. If you understand law of attraction, then you are free in your allowing them freedom, because you understand that they can't get into your experience without your vibrational invitation. And so the reason that so many laws are passed and so many attempts at controlling the behavior of others is because they don't understand what makes their experience go the way that it does. And they worry that you might infect their experience. And so that's why they seek to control you. But they don't do it for your well-being. They do it for their own. And that's why every single one of you is born with a guidance system that tells you what's best for you. And that's why we say, when you see an angry child, trust that that anger is a self-surviving mechanism. And that child is finding that anger because it feels better than something else. And then bless the child for the anger. Appreciate the fact that the child has found that, and envision that child moving from anger into something that feels better. But please no longer condemn the child for his anger. You'll just send him back to Phoenix. Good, isn't it? You're understanding clearly. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.